Now let's go to the Dead Report.
This is the Dead Report, episode 4 for September 5th, 2007. I'm Dave Taylor.
And I'm Joanne Taylor. Now for the news. Earlier this week, George Romero sat down with fellow director and Dawn of the Dead producer Dario Argento in a panel discussion at the Rue Morgue Festival of Fear. They discussed their two new films, Argento's Mother of Tears and Romero's Diary of the Dead. The discussion was moderated by Rue Morgue Radio's caustic critic Feedback. We received this video clip from Colin Geddes, host of the Toronto International Film Festival's Midnight Madness blog.
Can you both quickly talk about your films?
We have a story of three mothers, and then I invented one story about these three mothers.
Very quickly, George, can you tell us about Diary of the Dead?
So I had this idea recently, a couple of years ago actually, that this emergence of this electronic media, you know, alternate electronic media, and everybody now is a newscaster. You know, there's 400,000 people blogging and, you know, giving opinions. And so I had this idea to do something about that. And I thought the only way to do that is to go back to the first night when the dead begin coming back to life. And it's about students that are out shooting film students that are out shooting a school project when the shit hits the fan. And so they shoot everything that happens to them over the next couple of days. And that's what the movie is.
In a 2005 interview with MTV, George Romero takes a moment to talk about some of his influences, a director named Michael Powell and a director named Orson Welles. On Welles, Romero is quoted as saying, "It might have been difficult for us to work together. We might not have gotten along. But if you try to find any stylistic influence on the stuff that I do, it's probably those two cats." In doing research for the Dead Report episode 2, I came across this video from Cannibalistic President.
Well, you know, I mean, I think that I imitate probably, or I'm parasitic. I steal the most from Orson Welles, stylistically.
Rewatching Night of the Living Dead and Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, I found two striking similarities in the sequence of shots that led to the endings of the film. In the ending of Citizen Kane, we have a shot of a pivotal item in the film being thrown in a fire, followed by this very sort of jaunty "the end." In Night of the Living Dead, we have a very pivotal character of the film also being thrown into the fire. Sure, it's a very tenuous stylistic connection between the two, but let's take a look at this clip I found while watching a PBS documentary called The Battle for Citizen Kane.
The attacks on Welles, directly or indirectly, began with the Voodoo Macbeth.
Do you recognize him? That's Richard France, who played Dr. Millard Rausch in the 1979 film Dawn of the Dead.
They must be destroyed on sight.
I caught up with Mr. France on Skype. Here's an excerpt of our conversation.
George had this wonderful sense of, he loved in-jokes. And you know, I never took what I was doing seriously, and all he wanted was open your mouth, Richard. Basically, that was all it came down to.
That's great. Well, that was for the Crazies, right?
Both.
Right.
Both. The only difference between Crazies, as I remember, this is memory lane for me, was that in Dawn of the Dead, I get to wear an eye patch. I think that's the only difference in the character. The fun part about it was that business with Howard Smith on the when he's interviewing me. That was all ad lib. The whole thing was just made up on the scene.
Oh, it's gorgeous work, though. I mean, the way that he edited into the scene.
Wells used to say, he was once asked, do you consider editing a tool of filmmaking? And he fired back, I consider it the tool of filmmaking. By the way, that's a similarity with George, too, because he had tons and tons he used to shoot like crazy. I mean, lots and lots and lots of film. And then he would hold up for 3 or 4 months with his editing table and put the film together. You wanted to know about zombies, and Wells got this opportunity to direct for the Federal Theater Project, and he didn't really have a concept for the Macbeth, but his wife brought him this book called Sketches of Old Haiti, and he saw these costumes. It really turned a light on in his head. He found the parallels that he needed to make this vital to his audience, a parallel to the kind of vitality that Shakespeare's audience had when they saw Macbeth. The audience itself didn't believe that there were witches and all that sort of stuff, and they could cast spells. But they believed that the Scots believed it, okay? So it existed then as a kind of tension between belief and disbelief. In Harlem, the black audiences that went to see this themselves, by and large, didn't believe in this kind of voodoo and that sort of thing. They believed that the Haitians themselves, you know, as you put in your question goes, there were enough Haitians so that, again, you had that kind of tension between belief and disbelief. And that's what created the great vitality. It's also one of these things that makes horror movies so wonderful.
I met George and Christine in 2005, and they're really, really very nice, honest people. I had a really great time talking to George, and I just met him as a fan, and he really was just as personable with me as he would be with, you know, a neighbor or a close friend.
The George Romero I remember was a lovely, fun-loving. You couldn't enjoy somebody, the company of somebody more. You really couldn't. He was not the larger-than-life personality that Wells is, but he was a very, very joyous man to be around. You had fun around him. You enjoyed working with him, and you felt like you were working with him, by the way, not for him. And he didn't take all this very seriously. He was having as much fun as you were. When I went back to do Dawn of the Dead, they were doing the rushes from the day before, and they were hilarious. You know, all these zombies running about and flesh being eaten, and how the hell are you going to take that seriously? And so I started laughing, and the room was filled with young kids, and they looked at me as I was being sacrilegious. You know, my God, send this guy back to whatever boondoggle, a boon town he comes from. Get rid of him. This is holy writ. And then George walked in, and we hugged and all that sort of thing, and he started laughing. And then all of a sudden it was legit to laugh, you know. And I thought, God, guys, lighten up. And that was George, and I've always cared deeply about him. I consider him a dear and lasting friend, and please tell him that if you're in touch with him.
I will. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Richard. I really
appreciate it. My pleasure. Have a good time.
Thanks so much. Speaking of Orson Welles and zombies, the Action News team over here at the Dead Report went to go see Rosebud at the New Langdon Arts Center in San Francisco.
We're here at the Thunderbird Theater Company at one of the early shows of Rosebud, which is a new play about the life of, well, not Charles Foster Kane, but we're here with the director, Dylan, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the show?
It's a wonderful spoof of Citizen Kane that involves a tribe of curlers who would be the first Americans to win the American curling competition, the Olympic medal, and zombies, more importantly. It's really, really funny. Peter has written an absolutely fabulous script, and we had a ball doing it.
We're here with playwright Peter Finch. We've just seen the production of Rosebud. Very enjoyable. I just had a couple questions for you. First off, we really enjoyed the show. It was amazing, wonderful. It was a spectacle, a sight to be seen. So just one question: why zombies?
Why not zombies? No, so many people love the undead, you know, and I thought combining zombies with the story of Citizen Kane and competitive curling would just be great fodder for humor, you know? This is my debut as a playwright.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wanted to come out of the gate strong, so I said, zombies, we got to have zombies, you know? So you'll have to stack it up against any future works that I come out with, you know? But I'm happy with how it came out.
Well, thanks again. We really enjoyed the show, and we look forward to your next work.
Great, thanks a lot,
Thanks
Sasha.
for sitting down with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
From the Langdon Arts Center, this is Sasha Taylor for the Dead Report.
Thanks, Sash. As always, The Dead Report is a community-based video podcast. If you have any ideas, suggestions, or clips that you'd like to send in and have featured on our podcast, please email producer@thedeadreport.com.
I'd like to thank all of this week's contributors to The Dead Report. Good shot, and that's another one for the fire.
Good shot. Okay, he's dead. Let's go get him. That's another one for the fire.